It's January 20th, 2015, and this is the third section. I just got cut off from the last, or I turned off the last clip that I was making because my electricity in my house went out, and I had to go outside and flip a breaker to turn it back on. So anyway, as I was saying, I believe that after I was there, told to dry out, and actually the more that I reflect on it, the more certain I am. I do remember more. And I was made to stay there for a while in like a smaller room by myself, and I was tied up, and then someone would come in and check on me now and then and see how I was doing. And then I was taken to a hospital, and I'm positive about it. I said I think that I was taken to a hospital, but I'm positive I was taken to a hospital. What kind of a hospital, I'm not sure, because I was pretty confused about whether it was some kind of a military hospital that the U.S. was or jointly running with Russians, or what, because for U.S. people, the others stood as I was leaving, like the one from Scotland or maybe Ukraine and some of the people from other countries. They were still there, and they kind of stood around and were smirking at me when I was leaving. And what I remember is by the time I was leaving on foot. Like I was walking out of there myself. An ambulance didn't come. You know, I don't remember, you know, that I was carried out. Anyway, I remember that once I was sober enough, I was made to walk out and have people making fun of me and mocking me about being a slut and everything after what they'd done to me. And I was just in shock. You know, I was I wasn't out of it. I mean, I remember what happened. And I wasn't acting strange or anything, but I do remember I said something when they were all looking at me and sneering at me and laughing about what they'd done. I said, you just wait. I said something like, I don't remember my exact words, but I'd finally just had it. And I said, you just wait. I said, I will make sure that everybody knows what you've done to me, and I'm going to sue you. And when I said I was going to tell people what they had done to me, their looks changed, and their expressions changed, and it just looked very hostile. And then I was being taken to a hospital, and it was in Vladivostok that this hospital was located. And my impression of it was that it was like a torture chamber. It was possibly connected to some sort of a university or scientists, maybe some kind of military or government in that town somewhere. But like I've said, you know, I don't think all the Russians were in on it or knew about it. But it's kind of late in the night and I'm tired again. But they were Russian speakers at this hospital. They were definitely Russian. And but there were all these U.S. people around. As I said, the other internationals didn't go to that hospital. They just knew it was going to happen to me there, I think. And they smirked as I was on my way out of the Gursky Museum. And I sort of think, I also remember someone connected to Chris Dabney being there. And I'm not sure about Chris himself. He had to have been a young kid like me, but there was someone who was connected to him there. And I had already met him, so I did know who he was. And what his connection was to some of the others, I have no idea. But, you know, I was being made fun of and then taken to this hospital. And I don't know everything that they did at that hospital to me. I mean, it's possible that it's possible they examined me for rape, just to say they did. I mean, just to say this is the status of this girl right now. But nobody was acting like normal medics. It was more like they took me to the hospital so they could interrogate me, do a frisking and rundown about what I remembered that had happened, because they gave me so much vodka, they were hoping that I had forgotten or didn't remember everything. And I did remember. And I think they thought that it was just maybe impossible for me to remember because of the amount of liquor I had. But at that time in my life, I was actually being given a lot of liquor at various times. And I probably had more of a tolerance to liquor built up at that time in my life when I was 11 than when I was a college-age student, because I didn't drink at all in high school or college. But when I was younger, I had people giving me liquor all the time, and partly to have me not remember things. And but it wasn't like I was just buzzed. I had been definitely drunk and made to drink a lot of this vodka. I mean, I think it was like a whole it was like a whole bottle that they made me drink. And so once I was at this hospital, they asked me, you know, what I remembered. I wouldn't tell them everything, but then they put the electrocution brace on my head. They started electrocuting me. You know, the electrocution brace that I talk about is connected to a box, has wires and things, and has an aluminum or titanium strip or band that goes all the way around the head. There are different things that I've seen added to it and taken away from it, and it's possible there's more than one of those kinds of boxes or devices. But it basically did pretty much the same thing. They used it. Their excuse was that it was to brainwash people, and they acted like, well, that's all it does, and nobody suffers. But the suffering was intense. You know, the pain level was extreme, and they tortured me repeatedly over the years while they used it on me, forcing me to say and to pretend like it didn't hurt, or else they would torture me even more. So they had basically conditioned me to pretend like it didn't hurt and not show any response, so that when they made demonstrations of me using it, it looked like, oh, we're just doing our programming brainwashing, and it didn't look so much like full-blown electric chair torture. And anyway, they interrogated me and electrocuted me and just kept frying me. And after a while, I was so weak and tired, then they let me go. So then I somehow left with a Bob Jr., I think, or someone else, and then I met up with him later. The next place that I remember being at, from the hospital, was the Russian Foreign Ministry building. And there had to have been some kind of a time space that elapsed, at least a little bit, because by the time they took me to the Foreign Ministry building, I think it had at least been a day or two since I'd been out of the hospital, and I was kind of feeling like myself again. I wasn't drunk, and I hadn't been just immediately been tortured. But then when they got me into this foreign ministry building, the U.S. was saying they wanted to take me back to the U.S. And I was in shock, and then they made a point about saying, well, you want to stay here? You can stay here if you want. And then they were laughing at me, and I just thought, so did they rape me and electrocute me and torture just to show me you're not safe anywhere, so you may as well come back to the United States? Because I felt betrayed by Russia, or by the Russian individuals who had been involved in allowing all these other international people to do that to me. And there were some cops there. There were U.S. officials and cops, like FBI, and they started fingering the weapons at their belts. The way they did and practiced in the United States when they would threaten me with death threats, and they'd tell me, you don't go along with what we say and just agree with us, you're going to be tortured, and it's very possible you could be killed. And they always used a gun or a knife as a weapon to threaten me with. And it wasn't just torture. And they made it very clear that that killing me would not be a problem for them. So they were telling me this, and while they fingered their weapons and everything, they said, so Ms. Garrett, you're not on any drugs, are you? And I said no. And then they said, and is everything okay, Ms. Garrett? That was something that they'd often say, and a phrase they'd use. Is everything okay, Ms. Garrett? Cops would use that a lot with me while they fingered the weapon at their belt. And the cue was I had to say yes. Yeah, everything's fine, and pretend. If I didn't pretend well enough and didn't agree with them with what I knew they wanted me to say, I had in the past many times been subjected to really extreme levels of torture. And things like being chained to a bed for a long time and not getting any food, that kind of thing. So I agreed with them, and they said, so what do you want to do? You want to stay here, or... And then across from me, as I've already explained, there was Ed Howard and one of the Bob Juniors, and then there was another one with me next to my side, another Bob Junior. And then I've already explained how that happened. The part that I left out was what took place immediately before I was in the, or at some point right before I was in the foreign ministry building, about being raped and all the internationals involved. And I believe it's possible there's even someone there from Germany. I'd have to think about which person it was, which representative, but they had several representatives from some of these different countries show up and to witness this. And so another thing that was happening while I was in that building, as I think I explained, was that I was getting fried. I mean, there was some sort of technology that was being used at the same time. So I just thought, I really don't know what's going on, but someone's getting paid or bribed or something. And it had been so bad for me there with so many different international people involved that I thought, I just have to get out of here, and maybe I can try to go somewhere else again. So I said, yeah, I'll go back to the U.S. But my plan was, maybe I can escape both of these situations somehow and find something on the way out. And that ended up being an impossibility. But I just said what they wanted me to say, and then hoped I'd have another opportunity.